Rev up your engines!
Michael Langford, my dad had a 2004 Yaris, did 100,000 miles with not a single oil change, and it ran like clockwork. Okay, I'm assuming your father drove on a highway a lot, because highway mileage is equivalent to about 10% of city mileage. So if he drove 100,000 miles on a highway, that's equivalent to 10,000 miles in the city. So it could still run perfectly fine. But there's no way he drove that thing in stop and go traffic for 100,000 miles. Because I had a customer who did just that. And when he got about 80,000 miles on it, the engine started to go out. And I checked. I said, your piston rings are all worn out. How often do you change the oil? The guy said, I've never changed it. I said, well, you learned yourself a lesson. At least you did it with a cheap car. Car says, Scotty, Corolla 2000. What do you think for 580 bucks? If it runs and shifts and goes down the road, buy it. That's a deal. It's that cheap. Odds are maybe there's something wrong. I mean, if it's got dings and bashes, or let's say it went through a hailstorm where they got big dents in it, sure, then it's not going to be worth anything. But you'd want a mechanic to look at it at least, because that is so cheap. I'd wonder if there's something serious wrong. But if it runs and shifts, what the heck? Drive it around. For that small amount of money, Ed Cole 54 says, Scotty, would you buy a used car off eBay? Well, I wouldn't, because I want to get my hands on it and check it out before I buy it. Now, I have had customers do it. Some got lucky, got good cars. Some got absolute piles of junk. And some kind of got ripped off because the car was claimed to be more than it actually was. I had a customer buy a classic car on eBay, and they claimed it was original equipment. They got it, and they saw a bunch of parts on it that weren't original equipment. eBay is pretty good, though, about standing behind what the people say, what the seller said. And the guy went to eBay, and he said, hey, this guy said this was an original equipment car, had no problems, yada, yada. And he got his money back from him. He said, no, it isn't. He showed the proof, and the guy had to take the car back and give him his money back. So as long as you got some kind of a guarantee going with eBay for that kind of stuff, you might try it. But personally, I don't buy cars that I can't get my hands on first and check them out, because I don't trust anybody. And people give all kinds of BS when they're selling cars. Braxton Graham says, Scotty, I'm looking to buy a Nissan. Any suggestions? Yeah, look elsewhere. The last decent Nissan that I've ever seen my customers have was like a 99 Nissan, and the Sentras, the Altimas, even the Stanzas back then were reasonably solid built cars. I'd see customers get 200,000 miles more on them with original engines and transmission. Not any of the new stuff. The new stuff's garbage. I mean, it's absolute garbage. You know, if you really got to get one, get a new one that you like and just lease it for a few years and get it out of your system. Don't buy it. Alex Roscoe says, Scotty, what's your opinion on old Volvos like the 240, 740, and 940? Those old Volvos were killer vehicles. I had customers with them for 400, 500, 600,000 miles on them. They were killers, but they were the last killer vehicles that they made. Now, the plastic crap inside would be breaking out the door handles and the dash and everything. The plastic was made cheap as could be, but they had solid engines. They could last a long time. They're nothing like the later model Volvos, and of course now the Chinese make Volvos, and the only thing they say they're going to make in the future is electric cars and hybrid electric cars. The Avengers 34 says, Scotty, should a water pump fail after 23,000 miles after being replaced? The water pump of my 96 Corolla seized up. No, it shouldn't. And if it were 23,000 miles later, one of two things went bad. If you didn't flush the system out, the corrosion is going to corrode it and it'll break again. But generally, what I see on that is people buy cheap water pumps. They buy ones made in Taiwan or by poor Chinese manufacturers, and they just don't last as long. Or an idiot put it on and made the belt so tight that it burnt the bearing out. You got to make sure that the belts are the right tightness. If they're too tight, yes, they will burn them out after a period of time, but they should last a lot longer. I mean, I changed the water pump in my Celica, and it lasted 200-something thousand miles before it went out. So Ula Bitsu says, my car has a leaking head gasket, but the sealer seems to be working. But it still runs hot in city driving only. When you're in city driving, you don't have as much wind. You're on the highway, you got 60-mile-an-hour wind. So, as long as it doesn't overheat, hey, the sealer's working, drive it that way. You might try this, though, and a lot of times I see that fixes the problem is. You can get aftermarket radiators cheap enough. A lot of times I can get them for $79, $89. Replace the radiator and put coolant with a little sealer and see what happens, because an old radiator can't dissipate heat that well when when it's going slow. So you might just get out of the radiator and throw it in. If you got a car where it's easy, like in my Toyota, I can change the radiator in like 15 minutes. It's a nothing job. Javier Cruz says, Scotty, are you even from this world? Honest men don't live here. Oh, yeah, it was that Greek philosopher who said he spent his life looking for an honest man. He never found one. But people tell me I was born here. I don't remember any of that stuff, you know? And hey, I never take my sunglasses off. You never know. I might have ultraviolet eyes under here. Who knows? But yes, it is hard to find honest people these days. That's the world's sad truth. Everybody's out to make a buck as fast as they can or sell you something that they buy for 50 cents and then sell it for $25. I mean, sad but true. That's the world these days. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.